Okay, I need to sit down for this one. And also nostalgia, as this isn't going to look like this for much longer. So I think 0 people in the world were right about the event date, and I think I was wrong. Apple did blink about the Google event, because I can't see another reason that this event is on a Monday and not a Tuesday as normal, other than, not colliding with Google. And I'd said in the previous videos that Apple wouldn't move the event because their marketing spend and logistics were already booked in, but this wouldn't affect it at all. It's simply a case of releasing the video, and probably without any changes at all, 24 hours earlier than planned. So yeah, maybe that gentleman's agreement is real and the big players don't want to step on each other's toes. But I don't think many people are going to be talking about pixels on Tuesday. I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell, and we're going to get straight back into talking about that event that we've got next Monday on the 18th. So some of the interesting stuff that's happened today, Mark Gurman has started questioning the M1X branding, and this is what he tweeted. Here's the question: will Apple call the new MacBook Pro chip the M1X or M2X or something else entirely? M1X made sense 6 months after the M1, but now the M1X might sound outdated when the Air gets M2 by middle of next year. Impact of delays. And then another tweet: another path Apple could choose to take, M1 Pro for the 16-core GPU and M1 Max for the 32-core GPU, both chips with the 10-core CPU, and it leverages the popular M1 name. So, Jakob Friedrich, in your iCave answers, do you think Apple would skip the M1X and we will see an M2X this year? Personally, I don't, but Mark Gurman is obviously not as convinced now. Strange, because we have seen a few leaks just recently that literally called it an M1X, but they could have been pre-production. It could be a behind-the-scenes test name, we just don't know. But here's something new that we do know, and this comes via Ross Young, who is basically the guy that gets everything right about displays online. These new MacBook Pros could well be getting ProMotion 120Hz variable refresh rate displays. So that's pretty awesome, because I'm assuming that some of you guys who like high refresh rate on phones would probably quite like it in a Mac as well. Also, Luke Miani has apparently seen all of the configuration options for these MacBook Pros. They will indeed start with 16GB of unified memory and have a 32GB option, but no 64GB option, and multiple storage options, like a lot of storage options. We're also apparently getting 1080p webcams, fixing one of the biggest non-issues that Macs have had for some time. I mean, really, I get that we like HD, but those screens were actually super thin, and there weren't really many PC laptops out there with much better cameras. I think this may be a physics issue. Also, it looks like both of these MacBook Pros will be getting smaller bezels and no bottom logo, and the M1X is going to come in the same configuration for both models, and apparently the pricing will be very similar between the two sizes too. Now that's an interesting proposition, given that we had the assumption of $17.99 for the smaller one and $23.99 for the larger one. I think $600 difference isn't that similar. So are we talking maybe $200 for the size change, and which one will change, or will they both come closer together? This is a really interesting thing, and I'd love to hear your price theories down in the comments. But what else could we see at the event? The M1X Mac Mini? See yesterday's video for details on that, no need for me to go through it again. AirPods 3, possible, especially if we are seeing Pro software overhauls that feature spatial audio in Final Cut or Logic. My wildcard, though, is a 24-inch iMac. I'd be incredibly surprised if Apple didn't give this enough thermal headroom to accommodate an M1X, even though we've only seen it with M1 so far. Now, we have heard that the larger iMacs are delayed until late in 2022, but it does look a lot like Apple isn't making the chips inside its products dependent on the form factor, so I don't expect performance differences between the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros either, and I don't think that Apple would hold back the performance for the larger iMac when it comes next year. So, 24-inch iMac, let me know if you think we'll get one in the comments. So, David Stevenson, iCave Answers, all of the October rumours are about MacBook Pros, which is to be expected as that's what most people want, but I want a desktop, iMac Pro or Mac Mini Pro. Any sign of these coming soon? Well, it looks like we are most likely to get the Mac Mini. The iMac, not quite sure, but it would be the smaller model if we do. I don't think we're going to get that bigger screened version straight away. And as we're into some of your questions now, we might as well carry on with that. It's iCave Answers. Alan B Unboxings and News asks, iCave Answers, will Apple ever release a gold iPhone colour for the non-Pro iPhones on the iPhone 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 or 20? Now, I don't know if they will. I don't see why they wouldn't, because they have done gold iPhones in the past that have not been the super premiums. They did the rose gold in the 6, I want to say. I think they've done a regular gold in some of the others. That's the kind of aluminium gold that we get from Apple Watches. So I don't think it's impossible, but I know we've already got Starlight, which is kind of getting towards it. Mr. Cords asks, iCave Answers, what do you think of the rumour of Apple making a handheld to compete with the Nintendo Switch? Now, we talked about this in our podcast. This is me and Saran on Monday night. You can go and check it out over on 941 Podcast on YouTube. I think Apple already makes handheld consoles that would compete with the Switch. They're called iPads and they're called iPhones. And iPod Touches even are probably fairly comparable. Now, the software support in terms of which games you can play, not as cool, but I think that is basically what Apple's Play is going to be. We were talking maybe about Apple could create a controller that's a bit like Joy-Cons, or something that attaches through MagSafe potentially, but I don't think they're going to make a dedicated handheld gaming console. It doesn't feel very Apple. They're much more about multi-purpose devices in most cases. Randomness R asks, iCave Answers, any new update on AirPods 3? If they don't come out next week, I'm buying the AirPods Pro. Have you tried them? Also, did you order the Apple Watch Series 7? You should buy one, review it and send it back. Thanks for the show. Now, I don't like when YouTubers do that. I don't like it when they buy a product purely to review it and then return it, because at the end of the day, Apple, yes, they're probably getting a bit of free publicity out of it, but they're also getting a product back that they can't just sell as they would. And I know we don't need to be sympathetic about Apple, but it just seems a little bit disingenuous. I think if I was going to do this, I would probably buy the stuff and then resell it, maybe on the secondary market or something like that. And, with the supply constraints at times, I'd probably make back exactly what I paid for it, maybe even extra. I don't think I need to have hands-on with everything. There's enough information out there. I can see the differences between the different products. I'll buy the stuff that I want, and down the line, if we get to the point where the channel's big enough, maybe we will start doing a bit more of that, but right now, that's not the priority. And Editor Dave cutting in here, I've completely forgot to talk about the AirPods, but we did mention them earlier in the show. I do think they're probably going to be coming at this event. Just makes sense if they're going to do a stage announcement. Otherwise, it's going to be a press release. Cleveland Iron Man asks, iCave Answers, when do you think we will see the M1X iMac with a 32-inch screen? Do you think the internal workings and ports will be similar to this new 16-inch MacBook Pro that we're expecting soon? Thank you. So, it's quite possible that we won't get a 32-inch M1X iMac. It looks like that's going to be delayed until next year and probably have the M2X inside, but it does look like that's going to be late next year. It's not going to be super early. Earliest I think we could probably expect it might be WWDC next year in June. And Dante Burrata asks, iCave Answers, how do you think pricing for the new M1X Max will be? I'm expecting 14-inch MacBook Pro to start at $2,000, 16-inch to start at $2,500. I'll be looking closely at 32 gigs of RAM, 1TB, maximum cores, Mac Mini or 16-inch MacBook Pro. I think the latter will be $3,000 at least. Gulp. I do think if you spec it out, it's going to be able to get pretty high, probably pushing towards 4,000, but I don't actually think that it's going to start much higher than it does right now. I think $23.99 is the maximum I'd expect the 16-inch to start at, but hopefully a little bit less than that, hopefully way under 2,000 for the smaller one, but apparently the prices are going to be closer together, so maybe they're going to start at that $17.99 and $19.99 maybe for the larger one. And then both of them will be able to get the upgraded graphics cores, the upgraded unified memory, the upgraded storage, all the same stuff, but there's a couple of $100 between them. I think that's probably the most likely. I think that's where I'm going to put my chip down. $17.99 for the smaller one, for the 14-inch, and $19.99 for the larger MacBook Pro. Both of those with the 16-core graphics, though. And Team Kinetics asks, iCave Answers, are you as excited as I am for the Apple Unleashed event next week? Love the hyperdrive warp speed references used. And yeah, this was my first impression actually when we saw the event invite, is that this Unleashed event, it just screams power and speed, and Apple's really not shying away from that. So if you look at what Apple put out last November for the M1s, it was a lot more conservative than this. It was not in any way kind of conveying the power. It was just that kind of instant on. That was kind of the trademark for it at the time. Remember Craig Federighi opening it and it's already on and everyone lost their minds. And this year, it's all about that speed and power. So yes, I am very excited. And that's going to be it for today's show. It's a little bit shorter because everyone is covering this stuff right now. I wanted to bring you some of the bits that are a little bit different, that I don't think I've seen anyone else doing videos on yet, because it's the stuff that's been coming out on Twitter throughout the evening, later into the night, and I think this is the more interesting stuff. I didn't want to just rehash everything that we've done. We will do a roundup of everything before the events and any last minute rumours, but let me know in the comments what you're most excited for. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.